This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998 and Ash, and brought to you by Ash, who requested the continuation of this series. If there is a video you want me to make, just head over to Patreon or sign up as a channel member and select the Pickled Producer tier, since among other benefits, this will guarantee that your topic is produced, be it an ongoing series or a brand new story. But with that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Come on, Arrow, just a little further. These words have become Red's mantra since taking flight, urging his fossilized flyer onward as he has made his decision, and now all that's left to do is carry out the plan, and learn to live with the consequences. In his arm, Pika still discharges, though now the muscle contractions Red feels are a good thing, as they allow him to cling tighter to Arrow, and withstand the buffeting winds flowing out from their target. Then, he sees it, and so gritting his teeth instructs the rock flying type to get in close and he'll handle the rest. An order Arrow deftly obeys, veering sharply to avoid the next burst of wind and coming alongside so that Red can leap from its back and land on the snow of Mount Silver. Thanks to Arrow's efforts, they had managed to gain the sort of altitude that would take days on foot, though now the winds are too strong even for a skilled flying type, and refusing to put another friend in jeopardy due to his arrogance, Red returns the fossil Pokemon to its ball where it can be safe and warm, then sets off along the thin mountain path. Here Pika's discharges become deleterious once again, as not only do they run the risk of causing Red to stumble on the snowy ground, but also each time a jolt of electricity strikes the mountainside, it becomes more and more likely a rock slide will ensue. Either outcome would surely result in them both falling to a rather grisly death, as he's not sure Arrow has enough stamina left to catch them. However, in spite of this, Red presses on, knowing this is the only way to save Pika, so he won't let anything stand between him and that goal. As if the universe has chosen to put those convictions to the test, or perhaps karmically punish him for all his past decisions, the wind and snow begins growing stronger, and significantly colder. Though, this is a good sign, as it means they're approaching the summit. However, this comes with its own challenges, as looking down at his ailing buddy, Red sees that Pika's yellow lips have started going blue, and so hastily pulls off his vest and wraps it around the electric type, hoping that will keep him warm, or at least warm enough to keep fighting for a little bit longer. Naturally, this does mean that Red himself is now exposed to the full brunt of the elements, with each snowflake feeling like a burn upon his skin, and each gust a knife through his back, though if anything, it gives him focus and a reason to get to the spring as soon as possible, with him pushing one shivering foot in front of the other, and then doing it again, and again, and again, as every step, no matter how small, is a step closer to his objective. Finally, after what feels like forever, something looms out of the darkness that gives Red hope they've caught a break at last. A cave tunnel leading upwards, since while there could be any number of perils inside, at least they'll be out of the wind and snow. Stepping inside, Red takes a moment to dust the slush off himself and Pika, and reassure his buddy that it's just a little further, though with how drawn and heartsick his voice sounds, it's hard to exude any sense of confidence. Unfortunately, what is far easier to exude is a sense of threat, as when Pika discharges this time it lights up the cave, showing Red the flock of Golbat who had been sleeping on the roof, and in turn alerting them to his presence. While that's not bad enough, one of the stray bolts accidentally strikes a member of the flock, with this being all they need to deem the duo hostile, so that before the boy from Pallet Town can do anything, the flying types are upon him and his friend. Hunching over to protect Pika, Red tries to run. With his feet still half numb from the snow, he stumbles, landing painfully on his knee and allowing the Golbat more opportunity to bite and flap at him. While it would be child's play for Sora or Polly to clear this swarm away, Red can't afford to reach for their balls, since he needs both hands to shield himself and Pika, with this not being the first time tonight that he's wished for an extra set of hands, and a friend to wield them. If only Green and Blue were here, this wouldn't be an issue. If they were here, Giovanni would not still be at large, as they could have split up to both catch him and save Pika. If they were here, maybe Pika wouldn't have needed saving in the first place. But they're not. He saw to that. For a moment, Red forgets where he is, simply dwelling on this, though now is not the time for reveries or regrets. In fact, Pika is quick to remind him, as another unconscious discharge sends a jolt through his arms. Thankfully, it also clears away some of the Golbat, giving him a window to stand, and making the most of it, he sprints, ignoring his frozen feet, ignoring his burning arms, and ignoring the thousands of tiny wounds lining his back and neck. None of that matters now. All that matters is that he refuses to lose another friend. Seeing their victim flee, the Golbat give chase, though this time Red is prepared for them, using his shoulders, elbows, and head to push them away as they get close. While there's not enough to stop all of them, it is enough to keep him from being overwhelmed, and with Pika's sporadic outbursts adding another layer of danger, the cave dwellers soon conclude that this prey is not worth the cost and fall back, allowing Red and Pika to reach the other end of the tunnel in peace. Emerging now onto the snow once more, Red is struck by the natural beauty of this place. As the end of a thin walkway, he spots a natural pool which glows faintly, its waters calling to him like the song of a siren. Taking care not to fall at this last hurdle, Red approaches cautiously, crossing the walkway and climbing the rocky stairs before slowly descending into the pool. As soon as the water touches him, he feels rejuvenated, with the first thing to fade being the ache in his frozen feet, followed by the exhaustion in his legs and the burns, bites, and scratches on his torso and arms. Looking down, he sees that it is not just an anesthetic, as his wounds visibly begin healing before his eyes, and so taking a deep breath, he submerges Pika into the glowing water. As with him, Pika's injuries begin knitting back together instantaneously, with the burns around his cheeks healing while his lips return to their usual colour. Tears of relief running down his cheeks, Red pulls his partner into a hug, crying that he's so sorry for what he did to him, and so glad he's okay. Though, in return, he receives no response. Worriedly, Red begins looking the electric type over, and while all his physical injuries seem to have healed, this does not mean he is recovered, as he remains entirely unresponsive, and though the boy does everything he can think of, Pika does not wake. Back in the fuchsia gym, Red finishes his story, his voice having grown hoarse and his breathing rather shaky. Across from him, neither Ash nor AJ say a word, waiting until they are sure he is done to ask their questions. Speaking up first, Ash asks the most pressing question: did Pika ever wake up? Though this just earns him a sad shake of the head, as Red replies that his friend is still slumbering to this day. Now it is AJ's turn to speak, as he questions if this is why Red stayed on Mount Silver all those years, with the champion confirming that he stayed for several reasons. First and foremost was to watch over Pika, since any time he removed his partner from the pool his condition would rapidly deteriorate. Even when he brought the Silvertown nurse joy up to the summit to check on Pika, she was unable to tell him why this was the case, with Professor Oak being just as confounded. At the mention of Oak, Ash asks what were the other reasons that Red stayed, and seeing his protege surmised correctly, he confirms that part of his self-inflicted exile was due to shame. After everyone he hurt on his path of vengeance, he couldn't bring himself to go home and face blue and green again. From the night he first arrived on the summit, he only left for two reasons: to gather supplies for himself and his Pokemon, or to seek a new cure for Pika. Curiously, Ash asks if that's what he was doing in Pallet Town the day they met, to which Red nods, revealing that Oak originally caught Ash's Pikachu for him, in the hope that maybe he could help reawaken Pika, though when he saw Ash, it was like seeing his past self. He knew he had to stop him from making the same mistakes he did. He's ashamed to admit that at first, his interest in Ash was entirely based on his desire to assuage his own guilt, since he foolishly believed that mentoring him could be a way to make up for everything he did to Green. Though as they've journeyed together, he's come to truly admire Ash, and is incredibly proud of the young man he's grown into. Though, if the boy no longer wishes to travel with him after everything he's learnt today, he completely understands. Now it is Red's turn to fall completely silent, intent on giving Ash time to think, though it seems the raven-haired boy doesn't need it, as he replies that of course he still wants to travel with Red, since he's his friend, who is not going to abandon him because of bad choices he made decades ago, especially when it's clear that he's truly sorry for what he did, and he's spent more than half his life trying to make up for it. Eyes widening, Red asks if he's serious, to which the boy nods, while beside him, AJ seconds this, grinning they've always known Master Red had made some mistakes in the past, but it'll take more than that to get rid of them. At these words, Red gratefully embraces his students, unable to put into words how much this means to him, though after everything they've been through, Ash and AJ don't need to hear it. After a time, the trio at last depart the gym, making their way to the future Pokemon Center to let their teams rest and debrief on the next course of action. In particular, Red wants to look into what Janine told him before she fled, since her reference to "after the rain" sounds awfully similar to something Lysander said back at the Battle Tree. Your days of storming are at an end, soon there will come a rainbow. At this revelation, Ash and AJ both agree that it sounds like they're connected, though neither are sure how, forcing Red to grimace that he can think of one link those two seemingly disparate people have: Giovanni. A little startled, AJ asks if his master thinks that the Rocket Boss might be back, though Red admits that in truth he doesn't know, as during the world tour, he took some time to look into his old enemy's activities since he's been away, though so far they've turned up nothing. However, even if it is just him being paranoid, he'd like to make their next stop Cinnabar Island, since he is an old associate there with ties to the criminal underworld and a head for riddles, so if anyone can tell them what this connection might mean, it's Blaine. As it would be too long a wait for them to have Surge bring the SS Aqua, the trio decide to catch a regular ferry this time, with there thankfully being one departing the following morning, being that after a good night's rest and a slight alteration of his team on Ash's part, they're able to board the vessel and begin their journey south. Figuring they can get some training in while in transit, Ash and AJ go in search of any other strong trainers, though to their surprise and dismay, it appears that most of the other passengers are tourists, with it coming to light that Cinnabar Island has become little more than a holiday destination in the years since Red's journey. To make matters worse, when they arrive and head to the location of the gym, they find a burned down ruin that evidently has not been in operation for a long time, causing the champ to wonder if maybe Blaine died during his absence, since he supposes he was pretty old even when he was a kid. Though refusing to give up just yet, he instructs the boys to come with him and they'll ask around. As they leave the abandoned gym, both Ash and Pikachu are struck by a strange sensation, like someone is watching them, though when they turn around, they see no one. Looking to their companions, Ash questions if either of them felt anything, though Red just shakes his head while AJ teases that his rival's getting paranoid after the Janine incident. Figuring that might be the case, Ash and Pikachu pick up the pace to catch up with Red, though all the same, that feeling of being watched does not leave them no matter where on the island they go. From here, the rest of the day is spent wandering around asking if anyone knows the location of Blaine, and while the locals are able to reassure them the old scientist is presumably alive, they all have the same story, that no one's seen him for years and it's doubtful he's even still on the island. This puts a bit of a cramp in Red's plan, as he reasons they'll need to get in contact with Blue to see if he knows anything about his fellow gym leader's location. However, by now, night has well and truly fallen, and due to being on the other side of the island from the Pokemon Center, he decides to call it a day and seek shelter in one of the nearby hotels. Hopefully, AJ states that he saw one a couple of blocks back called the Big Riddle Inn, causing Red to stop in his tracks before asking him to repeat the name. Then when AJ does so, he begins to smirk, muttering something about a sly old Delphox, before taking off in the direction of the inn while the boys are forced to follow in hot pursuit. A few minutes later, Ash and AJ manage to catch up to their mentor, who is laughing amiably with the innkeeper, an old hippie with a very unconvincing honey blonde wig that stands in sharp contrast to his snow-white moustache. Letting out a deep breath, Ash demands to know why Red ran off like that. Though still smiling, the champion replies that he'd like to introduce them to the man they've been searching for, Blaine, the Cinnabar gym leader. Shaking his head fondly, Blaine sighs that he should have known if anyone could see through his ruse it would be Red. Then with a wave of his hand, he beckons them all inside. As they go, AJ questions why the man would hide his identity and let his gym fall into disrepair, to which Blaine answers that a while back there was a fire that burned down his old gym which also contained his lab. To this day he doesn't know if it was an accident or someone trying to destroy his research, though either way, he saw it for the opportunity it was. Still not following, AJ asks what opportunity, causing a trickster's glint to flash in Blaine's eye, as he answers that allowed him to use it as a misdirect and a puzzle of sorts, since most would just dismiss it as the gym being gone and move on, but for those willing to look deeper, he laid an elaborate trail of breadcrumbs that would lead them here to the real gym. Parking up now, AJ exclaims that he gets it, it's like a test to only admit the best of the best, with this making Blaine's grin grow, as he states that this kid's pretty sharp, and he doesn't just mean because of his pointy hair. While it is true that as a gym leader he must accept any challenge issued, there's no rule saying he can't set up a system to weed out the smart cookies from the dunces. Nodding approvingly, AJ calls this a clever approach, though before the aspiring gym leader and current one can get too lost in the weeds, Red cuts in, asking if they can have a word somewhere more private, since he wouldn't ask unless it was important. Having a great deal of respect for the brown-haired man, Blaine is happy to acquiesce, telling him and the boys to follow him and he'll show them to the real gym, since no one's going to eavesdrop inside an active volcano. At these last two words, AJ's eyes light up, as he turns to Ash and grins that Blaine must be really hardcore to train in a place like that. Though not sharing his friend's enthusiasm, Ash counters that it's more likely the heat fried his brain, since this guy seems like a total kook to him. Nonetheless, he and Pikachu follow Red, Blaine, and AJ down a hidden set of stairs and into the heart of a volcano, where a stone battlefield is suspended over a pit of molten lava. At once, the boy and his star feel that sensation of being watched just as strongly as they did at the abandoned gym, though once more when they look around, they see only their friends and the gym leader, and it can't be Blaine since he's too wrapped up in his conversation with Red. Speaking of, now that they're alone, the champion begins recounting his concerns regarding Lysandra and Janine's comments, for asking if Blaine knows anything about Team Rocket being back in business, or if he ever heard about a connection to rain, storms, or rainbows from his time in the organization. Shaking his head, the old scientist replies that while it's good lateral thinking to ask the Fire Master about rain, he's afraid he's going to disappoint him, since he doesn't remember anything of the sort, though in regards to his first question, he'll keep an ear to the ground for him. In the meantime, why don't Red and his boys stay here at the inn? That way if anything comes up, he can relay the information right away. Gratefully, Red agrees to stay the night and make any further plans in the morning, though before he can say more, a shadow falls over the gym that causes everyone to look up. At first, Ash doesn't have a clue what he is looking at, though as the being descends to eye level, he realizes that it must be a Pokemon, though he has no idea how it is managing to fly without wings, as it is roughly humanoid shaped though with some feline features that make it wholly unlike any Pokemon he's seen before. Figuring his Pokédex might contain answers, the boy then pulls it out, though when the little red machine scans it, all he gets back is species unknown. Smiling slightly, Red comments that it's good to know the professor kept his promise, before turning his attention to the Pokemon and greeting it as Mewtwo. Curiously, Ash asks if his mentor knows this creature, with Red replying that he more than knows it. It's technically his, though he entrusted it to Blaine a long time ago to help it let go of its hate. From the fact that it's not trying to kill them, it seems the old scientist did his job, though due to its incredible power, it was agreed that Red's Pokédex would be the only one to ever contain Mewtwo's data, so that ambitious young trainers weren't tempted to seek the legendary Pokemon out. He then brings forth his own own rather worn-looking Pokédex, which as promised reveals some information on Mewtwo, stating that it is a psychic type and the result of years of horrific genetic experimentation. At this news, Ash, Pikachu, and AJ all hang their heads, feeling sorry for everything Mewtwo must have gone through, and understanding why it must have hated people. Though seemingly untroubled, it instead transmits 2 words telepathically into the minds of everyone present. Battle. Now. Adjusting his cap, Red replies that he supposes he has time for a quick rematch with Mewtwo, though to his surprise, this makes the psychic type shake its head, then raising a 3-fingered hand, it points it directly at Ash and Pikachu. For a moment, both trainer and Pokemon are caught with matching looks of shock on their faces, having also assumed that Mewtwo would want to battle Red. Though this is not long lasting. As always eager to battle, the pair begin running around the volcano to reach their end of the battlefield, while AJ and Red take seats to watch, with Blaine joining them, stating that this is Mewtwo's challenge, not his, so he won't interfere. As Ash and Pikachu take their place, Mewtwo elaborates on its challenge, informing them that as the disciple of Red, it will give Ash the same terms as its battle with him years ago, his full team against it, winner take all. Worriedly, Ash asks if that's really fair, to which Mewtwo concurs that it isn't, though in spite of the boy's disadvantage, it hopes Ash will give it everything he's got. As Red's Pokédex had told him that Mewtwo is a psychic type, Ash decides to play smart, bringing out Sandslash as its signature Fury Cutter should be super effective. Excited for a chance to battle where it can clearly tell is a strong opponent, the mouse Pokemon is quick to obey its trainer's cry, rolling into a ball, and spin dashing at Mewtwo for extra speed before bursting from the roll and lunging forward as its claw glows with bug-type energy. For its part, Mewtwo remains perfectly still, seemingly appraising its foe. Then, once it feels it's got the measure of the ground type, it twitches a finger. Suddenly, Sandslash is struck by a wall of force which not only halts its attack, but sends it flying backwards in the opposite direction, so that before anyone can react, it has struck the wall with enough of an impact to leave a crater. In a tone of horror, Ash calls for Sandslash, rushing over to where it is hanging and cradling it in his arms as he asks if it's okay. Weakly, the ground rodent raises a shaking claw, signifying that it still wants to fight, though as its head lolls and its eyes become spirals, Ash urges his first capture to rest, while giving it an appreciative hug. After a moment of quiet, the boy returns Sandslash to its ball, and from the look in his eyes as he stands back up, it is plain to see that he is somewhat shaken that one of his most experienced Pokemon was taken out not by an attack, but the mere flick of a finger from Mewtwo. Eyeing Ash up with that same appraising gaze now, the Psychic telepathically insists that he choose his next Pokemon, and figuring that what he needs is protection against Mewtwo's power, his second pick is Corviknight. Letting out a caw, the gallant avian takes to the sky, and seeing that this will be their battlefield, Mewtwo rises to meet it. Knowing better than to let Mewtwo get a hit off, Ash tells his friend to close in for a Steel Wing, that moves side to side as it approaches. A good strategy, but not good enough to stymie this marvel of science. As showing off its own speed, Mewtwo deftly dodges in midair, then fires off a Psywave that manifests as a blade of psionic energy before slamming hard into Corviknight's back. Thanks to its psychic resistance, this is not enough to defeat the Steel Flyer, though it is still enough to ground it as it crashes to the battlefield with a pained squawk. Worriedly, Ash asks if he can keep battling, though showing the resolve of a true knight, the Raven Pokemon responds with a firm nod, then takes the sky once more, its wings are extended like blades. Like last time, Corviknight zigzags its way through the air, though unlike their last clash, this time Mewtwo does go on the attack, waiting until the bird gets close, before making a fist in front of itself. At once, Corviknight lets out an agonized scream as its wings are painfully slammed into its sides, the only thing holding it aloft being Mewtwo's power. However, it does not stay there long, so when the Psychic type unfurls its fingers, it plummets to the ground with a heavy clang. Naturally, if the power of a single finger twitch was enough to down Sandslash, the force of a full fist is more than capable of knocking out Corviknight, and as Ash reaches for its Pokeball, he sees deep dents in its armor where Mewtwo's psychic grip crushed it like a soda can. For his third choice, Ash brings out Chimchar, warning it to be very careful. Though being more confident than its canon counterpart due to never enduring Paul's mistreatment, the Fire Monkey is perhaps a bit too overeager, initiating Flame Wheel without Ash's command and using the rising hot air to soar upwards towards Mewtwo. Having no time for such foolishness, Mewtwo dismisses it with a flick of the wrist, which as expected breaks the wheel and sends the Chimp Pokemon tumbling to the ground. However, in a testament to its fast reflex, is able to manifest a second Flame Wheel right before striking the battlefield, thus dampening the impact significantly. Though this is not to say it is unharmed, quite the opposite in fact, merely that it is still able to fight, as having learned its lesson it looks back to Ash for direction. Pleased to see that they are on the same page, Ash tells Chimchar to use Ember this time, suspecting that perhaps his mistake has been trying to fight in close quarters, but it's seeming as if his strategic thinking is being rewarded, as instead of small embers, Chimchar unleashes a beam of concentrated fire the likes of which he's never seen before, though one that his Pokédex is able to identify as Fire Pledge. Unfortunately, while Fire Pledge is an upgrade, it is not enough to outdo Mewtwo, as proving itself just as much of a monster at long range, it raises its hands, freezing the flames in place, and then more terrifyingly, it reconstitutes them into a fiery dragon that it sends right back at Chimchar. Yelping a little, Ash tells his friend to run, though this is at best a temporary fix, as no matter how fast the small simian is, Mewtwo's dragon is able to keep pace and even gain on it. This is understandably troubling for Ash, though as Chimchar runs down the field towards him, he strikes upon a bright idea, and so as he and the chimp Pokemon lock eyes, he tells it to use Dig. Understanding perfectly, Chimchar changes course, going from forward to down as it burrows through the battlefield, and as expected, Mewtwo has the Flame Dragon follow. However, this was the plan all along, as with the field being suspended over a pool of lava, the dragon soon crashes into the molten liquid and is consumed by it, while a moment later, Chimchar reveals itself unharmed, having used one of its hand-like feet to cling to the side of the hole, giving the impression of having gone through while really hiding on the underside of the battlefield. From the sidelines, Red and AJ both encourage Ash, calling this some real quick thinking, though it seems Mewtwo is not amused at being tricked, as its expression changes from one of boredom to anger. With this comes a shift in its battle style, as for once it becomes proactive, seeking out its opponent rather than waiting for it to strike first, as it manifests a Shadow Ball between its palms and thrusts outward at Chimchar. Figuring Mewtwo can't telekinetically stop their attacks while using its own, Ash instructs his Fire type to use Fire Pledge again. Though, as you will soon learn, there is a flaw in this assumption, that being that just because Mewtwo can't stop his attack, doesn't mean Chimchar can stop Mewtwo's, as when the two moves hit, Shadow Ball begins parting the beam as it draws closer and closer to its target. Urgently, Ash cries for his friend to give the move everything it has, resulting in the chimp Pokemon letting out a bellow as its fiery beam grows in size. However, even this only slows the orb, so that soon it is close enough that Chimchar can see its own reflection in the glistening blackness. Then, something unexpected happens. That reflection begins to change as bright white light bursts from Chimchar, eclipsing the darkness until a moment later, a Monferno stands where it once stood. Now with its enhanced firepower, Monferno is able to create a flame large enough to consume the Shadow Ball, though as it looks back to Ash, it is plain to see that just countering one of the genetic Pokemon's attacks took a lot out of it. Nonetheless, Ash is over the moon, congratulating Monferno on its evolution, and beaming now that all three of his starter Pokemon are in their middle stages. This seems to intrigue Mewtwo, if only slightly, so that as it levels its gaze upon Ash, he instructs him to bring them out as well. Where once Ash would have seen this as unfair, now that he knows the true might of Mewtwo, he does not hesitate, calling forth Grovyle and Frogadier. Both of whom look surprised to be brought out so soon, though who upon catching sight of Monferno, give it matching congratulatory nods, showing they are pleased that it has caught up to them at last. Reverting to its old pattern of watching and waiting, Mewtwo allows Ash to make the first move, and already considering all the combo moves he could pull off now that he has all three of his stars on the field, he tells Monferno to use Fire Pledge, while Frogadier and Grovyle attack from the sides. Noting their understanding, the trio get to work, with the two new arrivals scaling the volcanic walls from opposite sides before leaping down to attack from above, while Monferno launches its fire move, hoping to split Mewtwo's focus. However, it seems the Psychic type has more than enough brain power to counter this, as reaching out, it grabs hold of both Frogadier and Grovyle's faces, cancelling their attacks, while with its tail, it swats away the Fire Pledge. Then, to make matters worse, it returns the Frog and Gecko to whence they came, lobbing them one after the other at Monferno, who screeches and dodges, resulting in its comrades eating dirt. Nonetheless, Ash remains undeterred, wondering if perhaps he used the wrong combination, as this time he tells Monferno to use Fire Pledge, while Frogadier meets it with Water Pulse. As he had hoped, this creates a steam haze which blankets the field, obscuring his team, and capitalizing on this, he instructs his three stars to go on the attack while Mewtwo can't see them. However, herein lies another faulty assumption, that Mewtwo was ever blind, as suddenly, a pair of glowing blue eyes burst from the haze like beacons, before the steam itself is whipped up into a tornado, which promptly catches Monferno, Grovyle, and Frogadier, before they can even get close. From the sidelines, Red and Blaine reminisce that this is Mewtwo's ultimate defense for combating team attacks, with the champion musing that this variation of Psywave gave him real trouble when he battled the genetic Pokemon, knocking out most of his team in a single blow, so he hopes Ash's starters can handle themselves. Sweating a little now, and not because of the volcano's heat, Ash watches his trio of starters are ejected from the tornado and go flying towards the wall, seemingly doomed to end their fights the same way Sandslash did. Though, before they can make their own craters, an idea hits him, and so crying out, he tells Frogadier to throw some Frobbles onto the wall, while having Monferno strike them with Flame Wheel. Though they don't know why, the Water and Fire stars comply, with the massive white goop splattering against the wall before turning a golden-brown color as Monferno blasts them, and then is bounced away. Now at last Grovyle and Frogadier understand, and so mimicking their teammate, they use the toasted Frobbles to make a soft landing, though not a sticky one, as by sealing the substance with heat, they have gone from adhesive to bouncy. Touching down, the stars will look back to Ash, evidently showing the same thought as their trainer. Then, on his nod, they set to work. First, Frogadier hurls a series of Frobbles at various points in the volcano. Then, Monferno seals them with Fire Pledge, creating a series of springy patches all over the walls and floor. As none of this has been threatening to Mewtwo, it has allowed this, watching with interest at what the team has planned, though it won't have to wait long, as on Ash's command, Grovyle launches forward with Grassy Glide. At once, the gecko begins picking up speed, with this being doubled as it hits the first set of toasted frubbles and is sent into the air. Likewise, when it lands on the next set and is sent springboarding away, its speed is compounded once again, with this repeating each time it bounces off another set, until finally it is a green blur. Then, when Ash feels it has enough speed, he commands it to aim inwards and strike Mewtwo. At such speeds, even the Psychic type is unable to get a lock on Grovyle's position long enough to freeze it in place, nor can it dodge, meaning that when it closes in, the Grass Gecko is able to land the first hit of the match on Mewtwo. However, this is not the full extent of the damage, as a moment later Water Pulse and Fire Pledge strike from below, catching the distracted generic Pokemon off guard and securing a hit for each of the starters. Back with the spectators, Blaine clutches his arm with a grimace, causing Red and Asia to ask if he's alright, though smirking, Blaine replies that he's fine. It's just the Mewtwo DNA in him reacting to the fight, since while his creation would never admit it, its blood is pumping more than it has in a long time. In fact, the last time he felt Mewtwo get this excited was when it fought Red all those years ago. Good to Blaine's word, it seems that Mewtwo is at last ready to get serious. His eyes glowing once again, the Psychic type raises both hands, causing all the frubbles to be lifted into the air where they begin circling Mewtwo at high speeds. Briefly, Ash and his Pokemon wonder what the artificial creature is doing, though this becomes clear momentarily, as the ring of frubbles get tighter and tighter and faster, until it is a small disc circling just above Mewtwo's hand at such incredible speeds that the frubbles themselves are indistinguishable, as all anyone can see is an oddly coloured saw blade. Then, as if this weren't intimidating enough, the feline Psychic imbues this with the power of Shadow Ball, creating an umbral energy blade which it hurls down at its three opponents, telepathically declaring that this will be the final blow. Knowing this will be true unless he does something, Ash cries for his starters to counter, which for Monferno means letting out another Fire Pledge that meets the disc, but alone has no chance of holding it off. Seeing this, Frogadier attempts to help by rallying a Water Pulse, though knowing a single orb will be quickly blown away, it channels its water into something more consistent, a continuous torrent which bursts forth to meet Monferno's, though when it does, something curious occurs. A rainbow appears overhead, casting a beautiful light upon the clash. Meanwhile, Grovyle finds itself at something of a loss, as unlike its peers, it has no ranged moves through which to attack the disc, and if it were to get in close, all it would achieve is getting itself needlessly hurt. However, as it watches Monferno show off its bravery in facing Mewtwo alone, and Frogadier demonstrates its intelligence by using its existing skills to manifest a new move, it knows that it must do something, as it refuses to be left in the dust. It is here that Grovyle finds its own source of power, through the strength of its resolve, with this manifesting through a new move of its own, a mighty flurry of leaves which burst upwards to join the attacks of its comrades. Then, suddenly, the attacks combine, being neither fire, grass, nor water, but instead something greater and more harmonious, which at last has the strength to hold Mewtwo's attack at bay. As this happens, Red finds himself transported back 20 years, remembering vividly how he, Blue, and Green once fought another Team Rocket creation, the fusion of Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres. In that fight, they two had to combine the power of their three starters to defeat the legendary beast, and as the combined power of Ash's trio at last breaks through the disc and goes flying right at Mewtwo, Red cheers for his apprentice to bring it home. What follows is an explosion that rocks the entire volcano, with the lava beneath the ring beginning to churn violently, though this is the furthest thing from anyone's mind, as everyone watches as Mewtwo is knocked from the sky and lands hard on its back. This is the first time anyone has ever downed the genetic Pokemon, and while Mewtwo is able to rise back to its feet, there is no mistaking that it has been noticeably damaged. However, it seems that it is not the only one, as the power of this combination move has used up all the stamina Ash's three starters had left, with them each falling forward into unconsciousness, though as Mewtwo surveys them, it is with self-evident respect. Likewise, Ash has nothing but gratitude for the trio as he recalls them with his praise. Then, as he looks down at Pikachu, he asks his partner if he's ready to battle. Having been galvanized by the efforts of Frogadier, Grovyle, and Monferno, Pikachu nods adamantly and leaps onto the field, with this seeming to please Mewtwo, as it reveals that this is the Pokemon who's been waiting to battle. Curiously, Ash asks why Pikachu specifically, to which the Psychic type replies that as of late, it has been dreaming of a Pikachu, though not any ordinary Pikachu. This creature has power greater even than Mewtwo's. That is why it challenged Ash, and that is why it has been watching him. Grinning, Ash laughs that Mewtwo should have just said so, instead of happily battled it from the start. Though paying this no mind, the genetic Pokemon instead decides to start things off with a Shadow Ball which forces the electric rodent to leap away before coming back in for a quick attack. When he tests the power of this challenger, Mewtwo makes no attempt to dodge, instead allowing the hit to land. Truthfully, it cannot help but be a little disappointed by the result, as while this Pikachu is undeniably strong, there is nothing to his quick attack which would suggest that he is equal or greater than it in terms of power. However, having spent much of its life around scientists, Mewtwo Mewtwo examines this logically and promptly concludes that this quick attack may not be indicative of Pikachu's true strength, since for that, it will need an electric attack. To this end, the Psychic type takes the air and manifests a series of small shadow balls on the tip of its fingers before throwing them down at Pikachu like a scatter shot. As it had hoped, Ash and Pikachu countered this with Thunderbolt, having the rodent burst the balls one after another, with the results being favourable. As though it is close, Pikachu is able to dispatch all 6 before he is struck. However, just because the electric type can handle a series of shadow balls at 1/6 of its power does not prove that they are equals, with Mewtwo now trying a single full power orb, which it lobs right at Pikachu, though surprisingly, he does not engage, instead dodging out of the way and using the confusion to strike with a Thunderbolt which connects, not because Mewtwo allowed it, but because it is genuinely caught off guard by this tactic. Shaking its head to clear away the shock both figuratively and literally, the genetic Pokemon retreats higher into the air to avoid the follow-up attack Ash and Pikachu had planned, with it using this break to think and analyze. As well, that Thunderbolt was impressive, its strength pales in comparison to Mewtwo's own. A disappointing outcome, but not an unfamiliar one, as it was created with the intent of being the world's strongest Pokemon. Meanwhile, down on the battlefield, Ash and Pikachu prepare their next move. As while a Thunderbolt would seem the obvious choice, this also means it's the choice Mewtwo is expecting. If this battle has taught them anything, it's that if an opponent is able to predict a move, they may be able to stop it. As a result, the Ravenhead youth calls for something a little unpredictable, having his partner leap onto the volcano wall and use agility to run in circles, trusting the momentum will keep his feet affixed to the stone. To the surprise of everyone, this works, allowing Pikachu to climb up the side of the arena towards Mewtwo, while also building up speed, so that when he launches his quick attack, the Psychic type is unable to fully avoid it, only moving fast enough that the body blow is converted into a painful strike to its ribs. However, this isn't where the attack stops, as having anticipated Mewtwo dodging, Ash gives his real command now, to bounce off the wall and use a second quick attack from behind. Grinning devilishly in a way that reminds the boy and his friends of Clefairy, Pikachu perfectly executes this maneuver, using the momentum of striking Mewtwo's rib to reach the volcano wall, and then immediately kicking back off to ensure no speed is lost. Thanks to this, the artificial Pokemon has no chance to plan or perform a counter move, meaning that when Pikachu collides with its back, it is sent slamming face first into the rocky slab right where the Electric type had started this combo. Speaking of Pikachu, he hastily scampers back down the wall and onto the battlefield, knowing to be near Mewtwo when it recovers from that. A wise decision, as when the Psychic type glares down at him a few moments later, it is with glowing blue eyes once again. Wanting to keep the momentum up, Ash hastily tells Pikachu to blast Mewtwo with Thunderbolt from a distance, though unfortunately, this doesn't even come close to hitting the feline, as with a casual raise of its hand, it freezes both the Bolt and Pikachu. Then, with a flick of its wrists, it sends the attack right back to its sender. To Pikachu's credit, this is quite the Thunderbolt, as when it strikes, it is enough to send the electric rodent soaring into the air with a squeal of pain. Though, this is just where Mewtwo wants it. As spinning its wrists in a circle, it once again manifests that Psywave tornado, catching the airborne Pikachu and sending him tumbling end over end around the volcano, while occasionally crashing into the wall in what can only be assumed is ironic retribution for the agility quick attack combo. Then, when the unfortunate rodent reaches the zenith of the tornado, Mewtwo thrusts its hands upwards, forcing the spout to spit Pikachu out and send him skyward for a landing he most certainly will not be able to withstand. As this happens, Pikachu is given a beautiful view of the entirety of Cinnabar Island, though this is not where he is looking. Instead, he is staring down at Mewtwo, and the weak spot is just exposed. Looking up as he cries his buddy's name, Ash spots it too, that in its eagerness to flex its might, Mewtwo has put Pikachu in a position where he can easily strike the back of its head, which if its brain is like everyone else's brain, will rattle the Psychic type long enough that he and Pikachu can actually get the win. However, such a strategy will require incredible speed, the sort neither Quick Attack nor Thunderbolt can manage. Though, both trainer and Pokemon know there is one move in their arsenal that could do it, the fusion of both these attacks. Volt Tackle. Meeting his trainer's eyes, Pikachu wordlessly asks Ash if this is their plan then, causing an image to flash in his mind, of victory, and proof that he and his buddy are stronger than the world's strongest Pokemon. Though, just as fast, he is replaced by another vision, of Pikachu in that hospital bed after the semi-finals of the Battle Tree tournament, and of Red cradling Pika on his way up Mount Silver, so that when he opens his mouth to issue a command, it is Thunderbolt. At once all the colour returns to Red's face, as like his disciple, he had reached the same conclusion on how they could win, though having trusted Ash to make the right choice he had not interjected, with it pleasing him to see that his faith in his student is being rewarded. However, this is not to say it is being rewarded by everyone, as just like Ash had thought, Mewtwo is able to react in time, catching the bolt of lightning and cradling it in its hand. Lifting its head skyward, the genetic Pokemon surveys Pikachu with that same look it gave Monferno, Frogadier, and Grovyle, before commenting telepathically that Pikachu is powerful, having even challenged it somewhat, though he is not the one from its dreams. Then, with a thrust of its hand, it sends the bolt right back at the Electric type, who due to being in free fall can do nothing to dodge it, taking the hit, followed shortly by the impact of landing, the combined force of which is more than capable of knocking him out, ending the battle. Rushing onto the battlefield, Ash quickly picks up Pikachu, checking him for injury victory and thanking him for giving his all. Likewise, Red, Blaine and AJ all praise the strength and tenacity of Ash and his entire team, calling that a remarkable battle, with Red encouraging Ash not to feel down, since even he never truly defeated Mewtwo in battle, having used tricky strategy rather than raw strength to catch it. Speaking of the psychic feline, it says nothing in the aftermath of the fight, instead simply flying away, with Blaine waving this off as Mewtwo being Mewtwo, and urging the boy not to let that bother him. However, on the contrary, when Ash rises to his feet, he has a broad smile on his face, as he calls out to Mewtwo, thanking it for an awesome battle, and making it a promise that one day they will have a rematch, and when that day comes, he and his team are gonna win. And that's where we'll leave things. What new training will Ash undertake in order to grow as strong as Mewtwo? Will Red ever get answers to the connection between Team Rocket and the Rain? And who is the Pikachu from Mewtwo's dreams? Find out as the journey continues.